You're listening to the Small Business Accelerator podcast, accelerating success, one founder at a time.
With your hosts, Roger Bryant and Sarah Wilson.
We support small business owners, the little guys. We're here to help you win in today's landscape.
Join us each week as we reveal powerful strategies for small business owners that save you time and money.
Because we believe every small business owner should have access to Fortune 500 style strategies without breaking the bank.
Subscribe now on Spotify and Apple Podcasts to accelerate your small business success. Ever feel like you're stuck between a rock and a hard place? That rock being your career, demanding career.
Yeah.
And the hard place being a present parent.
Right.
I know I have.
Yeah.
Remember that feeling, that sinking feeling of having to miss your kid's big, recital or something for some work thing.
Oh, yeah.
It turns out this whole balancing act of career versus family, it's a high wire act that millions of us are struggling to master.
It is. And it's not just anecdotal. We've been diving into some research on this, and the numbers are actually kind of staggering.
Yep.
Did you know that in almost 90% of families, at least one parent is working?
90%. Okay, that's not super surprising, but
right.
When you add in the fact that nearly half of two-parent households have both parents working full-time, that really paints a different picture of the modern family, right?
Yeah.
It's not the one parent works, one stays home model anymore.
Exactly. And while that dual income can be, really great for financial stability, it also kind of creates this pressure cooker environment where parents are constantly feeling torn between those work demands and family needs.
Yeah.
In fact, one study that we looked at found that 63% of working parents felt that family obligations were actually hurting their career progress.
63%. That's huge.
That's a lot, yeah.
And I bet there were some interesting nuances within that statistic, too.
Oh, absolutely.
Isn't there something called the motherhood penalty?
Yes.
Where working moms often face greater career setbacks than dads.
Absolutely. And the research on that it's quite extensive.
Mm-hmm.
And it points to a lot of, kind of ingrained societal expectations and biases. But we can unpack that a bit later.
Okay.
For now, I think it's important to acknowledge that this whole juggling act has very real consequences.
Yeah.
Not just for careers, but also for the emotional well-being of everyone involved.
Right. Because it's not just about, like I said, missing a recital or something. It's about that constant low-level stress of feeling like you're never fully present in either role, right?
Right.
You're at work, but you're worried about your kid who's got the sniffles, or
exactly.
You're at home, but you're mentally drafting that email that you need to send first thing in the morning.
And our kids pick up on that, even if we try to shield them from it.
Yeah.
One study we came across talked about how parental stress can actually manifest in children as behavioral issues.
Oh, wow.
Or even difficulty regulating their own emotions, It's like this chain reaction.
Okay, so we've established that this is a big, messy problem. But where's the light at the end of the tunnel?
Yeah.
Because I'm already starting to feel my shoulders tense up just thinking about all this.
Well, the good news is that there are strategies
Wow.
and even some surprising tools that can help us navigate this. And it's not about achieving some, mythical perfect balance,
Right.
which, let's be honest, that's a recipe for burnout.
Yeah.
It's about finding what works for you, your partner, and your family, and building sustainable systems that honor both your professional goals and your personal life.
Sustainable systems. Okay, you had me at systems. I'm all about finding those hacks, that make life run a little smoother.
Yeah.
So spill the beans. What kind of actionable takeaways did we find in this mountain of research?
Well, one recurring theme is the importance of communication.
Okay.
And not just the surface level, how is your day kind of communication.
Right.
We're talking about proactively communicating your needs and expectations and boundaries.
Yeah.
With everyone involved, from your partner to your kids to your boss.
Okay, I can see how that's easier said than done, especially when it comes to having those sometimes uncomfortable conversations with employers about work-life balance.
And that's where, that clear, direct communication is key. But one source had a really interesting approach, which is practicing those conversations beforehand.
Practicing. Like a work-life balance role play.
Exactly.
Okay.
Not in a cheesy way, but think about it. If you have those conversations kind of mapped out in your head beforehand, you'll feel more confident and prepared to advocate for your needs.
Okay, I like that. It's like that saying, fail to prepare, prepare to fail.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly. Now, speaking of preparation, one of the sources had this fascinating section on automation.
Wait, automation? Like robots doing our laundry and packing school lunches.
Not quite that advanced yet, but you're on the right track. It's about leveraging technology to streamline those everyday tasks that just eat up our time and mental bandwidth.
Okay, this is starting to sound interesting. So we're talking about like using automation, kind of like businesses do, but in our personal lives to, I don't know, free up time for actually like being present for our kids' recital instead of frantically trying to get out of work.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And one of the sources even mentioned this book. It was called Automations Made Easy.
Okay.
And it got into the nitty-gritty of how to do this.
Okay, now that's what I'm talking about. I'm adding that to my reading list ASAP. But
Yeah.
just to give me a taste, what kind of things are we talking about automating here?
Well, it can be as simple as, setting up automatic bill payments so you're not scrambling at the last minute.
Right.
Or using online grocery delivery services to reclaim that hour that you would usually spend, at the supermarket.
Okay, those are pretty standard, though, I feel like. Even I, a self-proclaimed tech dinosaur, have those down. What about something more, I don't know, next level?
All right, how about this? Imagine using voice assistants to manage your family's calendar. So you could schedule your work meetings, your kids' soccer practice, even those dentist appointments you always forget about.
Right.
All with a few spoken commands.
See, now that's what I'm talking about. It's like having a personal assistant, but, way more affordable. And I guess the beauty of it is that even if you just automate a few key areas, it frees up mental space to focus on the things that truly matter, right?
Right.
Like being more present with your family.
Exactly. It's about working smarter, not harder, and applying those same principles of efficiency to our personal lives.
I like it. I'm starting to feel like we might actually be onto something here.
Yeah.
But shifting gears a bit, remember how we were talking about the emotional toll this whole work-life balance struggle takes?
Yeah.
One of the sources really zoomed in on the guilt
Oh, yeah.
that parents, especially moms, often feel about not being enough
Right.
on either the work or the home front.
Yes. And that guilt can be incredibly insidious. One study actually found that working mothers are significantly more likely to experience symptoms of anxiety and depression than their stay-at-home counterparts.
Wow.
And even working fathers.
Which makes sense, right? It's like this constant internal tug of war.
It is.
You're at work feeling guilty about not being with your kids. You're with your kids, but you're thinking about that deadline you're behind on. It's exhausting.
Absolutely. And that's why self-care isn't just some, fluffy indulgence.
Right.
It's crucial for parents, especially those juggling, demanding careers.
Yeah.
If you're running on empty, you're not going to be able to show up as your best self for anyone.
Okay, I totally get that. But what's realistic here? Like, I'm lucky if I can squeeze in a shower some days, let alone, an hour of yoga or massage.
Right. I hear you. And it doesn't have to be extravagant. One source suggested something they called micro moments of self-care.
Micro moments. Okay, I'm intrigued. Tell me more.
It's about finding those little pockets of time throughout the day to just sort of recharge, even if it's just for a few minutes.
Oh.
Maybe it's taking 5 minutes to step outside and take some deep breaths of fresh air, or listening to your favorite song while you're commuting,
Yeah.
or even just like enjoying a cup of tea in silence before the rest of the house wakes up.
I like that. It's like sneaking in those little mood boosters throughout the day instead of waiting for, a big chunk of time that might never come.
Exactly. It's about being kind to yourself and recognizing that you deserve those moments of respite, even amidst the chaos.
It's interesting because we've been talking about all these different strategies, communication,
Yeah.
automation, self-care,
Right.
and I'm realizing they're all interconnected, aren't they?
They absolutely are. It's like this web,
Yeah.
If one strand is weak, the whole thing starts to unravel.
And when you think about it, it makes sense, right? Like if you're
Yeah.
feeling stressed and burnt out, you're less likely to communicate effectively
Right.
or make time for self-care.
Exactly.
But if you can find ways to, lighten your load even a little bit,
Right.
it creates more space for those positive changes to take root.
Precisely. And that's where another crucial element comes in, one that we haven't really touched on yet, which is support.
Support, you mean like from our partners?
Yes, but it goes beyond that. It's about cultivating a support system that extends to family, friends, even colleagues and neighbors.
Okay. So not just going it alone, but realizing that it really does take a village.
Exactly. Because even with the best intentions and the most organized calendar, there are going to be days when everything just hits the fan. And that's when having people you can rely on to, pick up the kids from school or just lend an ear when you need to vent can make all the difference.
I think we often underestimate the power of just asking for help, don't we?
Absolutely. We try to be superhuman, doing it all, and then we wonder why we're exhausted and resentful. It's like that saying, you can do anything, but you can't do everything.
So true. So we've got communication, automation, self-care support. It's a lot to juggle.
It is, but the key takeaway here is that you don't have to do it all perfectly.
It's about finding what works for you and your family and giving yourself permission to let go of the things that, don't.
Couldn't have said it better myself. It's about progress, not perfection.
I love that. But progress, not perfection. So if we're striving for progress, what does that actually look like in the real world? Because let's be real, this all sounds great in theory, but I'm picturing parents listening to this, while they're simultaneously trying to meet a deadline and negotiate with a toddler who's refusing to eat their vegetables.
You're painting quite the picture there. But you're right. It's about bridging that gap between, the big picture concepts and the everyday actions.
Right.
Remember that book we mentioned, Automation's Made Easy?
Yeah.
Well, one of the key takeaways from that source was that even automating one small task can have this ripple effect on your overall sense of well-being.
Okay, I'm all about those ripple effects. Give me an example. What's one thing a listener could automate like this week that would actually make a tangible difference?
How about meal planning?
Okay.
It's a classic source of stress for busy families, right?
Oh, yeah. Big time.
But imagine if instead of scrambling to figure out dinner every night, you had a system where your meals were planned in advance, Your grocery list was automated. Maybe even some of the cooking was done ahead of time.
Okay, now you're speaking my language. That sounds like a game changer. Suddenly, that vision of a calm, organized parent who actually has time to, have a conversation with their family over dinner, it doesn't seem so far-fetched.
Right. And that's just one example. The beauty of automation is that it can be tailored to your, specific needs and pain points. Maybe laundry is your nemesis. Well, guess what? There are services that will pick up your dirty clothes, wash and fold them, and deliver them back to your doorstep.
See, this is why I love a good deep dive. I'm learning so much more than just, communication is key.
Right.
Although speaking of communication, we did talk about the importance of having those conversations with employers about, flexibility or work-life balance.
Yeah.
But what if those conversations are met with resistance or worse, outright dismissal?
That's a tough situation to be in. And unfortunately, not everyone has the luxury of working for a company that prioritizes, employee well-being. But even then, there are subtle shifts you can make. One source talked about the importance of managing up,
Okay.
which basically means proactively anticipating your boss's needs
Okay.
and communicating your availability in a way that works for both of you.
So instead of saying like, hey, I'm leaving early every day to pick up my kid, it's more about saying I'm most productive in the mornings, so I'd like to, block out my afternoons for focused work time.
Exactly. It's about framing your needs in a way that aligns with the company's goals and, demonstrates that you're still a valuable asset, even if you're not putting in those traditional hours.
Okay, that's really smart. It's like that saying, you catch more flies with honey than with vinegar.
Precisely. And sometimes that's, the best you can do in those situations where you don't have a lot of leverage.
This has been such an eye-opening conversation. But I think it's important to acknowledge that even with the best strategies and support systems, this whole work-life balance thing, it's an ongoing journey. It's not a destination, right?
It's not, no.
There are always going to be ebbs and flows, and some seasons are just naturally going to be crazier than others.
Absolutely. And that's where that idea of, work-life integration comes in that we touched on earlier.
Right.
It's about recognizing that these two spheres of our lives, work and family, they're inevitably intertwined. And that sometimes the best we can do is find ways to kind of blend them as seamlessly as possible.
So not about rigidly separating them, but just about finding that flow that works for you.
Exactly. And that flow might look different for everyone. The key is to be intentional about how you're spending your time and energy and making choices that align with, your values and priorities.
I love that, intentional living, because at the end of the day, it's not about achieving some, picture-perfect ideal of work-life balance.
Yeah.
It's about creating a life that feels meaningful and fulfilling, both personally and professionally.
Well said. It's about finding that sweet spot where you're able to pursue your passions, nurture your relationships, and still have, enough energy left over at the end of the day to enjoy a glass of wine.
And maybe even make it to a recital or two.
Maybe even make it to a recital or two.
Okay. I think we've given our listeners a lot to digest today.
Yeah.
What's the one thing you hope they take away from this deep dive?
If I could leave your listeners with just one thought, it would be this. Be kind to yourself. This journey of juggling work and family, it's a marathon, not a sprint. And there will be days when you feel like you're nailing it, and there will be days when you feel like a total failure.
Oh, yeah.
And both are okay. The important thing is to just, keep showing up, keep learning, keep striving to create a life that feels authentic and fulfilling for you and the people you love.
Beautifully said. And on that note, we're going to wrap up this deep dive. We hope this conversation has, sparked some new insights and inspired you to take some small steps towards creating a more, balanced and fulfilling life. And remember, you're not alone in this journey. Until next time, keep diving deep and keep seeking those aha moments. Thanks for tuning in to the Small Business Accelerator podcast.
We really hope today's strategies help you grow your business without breaking the bank.
Don't forget to check the show notes for links to resources we've handpicked for small business success.
If you found value in today's episode, it would make our day if you subscribed to the podcast and left us a review.
You can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
And stay tuned for our next episode. Next time, we'll reveal yet another game-changing strategy that's revolutionizing how small businesses on a shoestring budget take on giant corporations and accelerate their success.
Until then, keep accelerating your success.
This is Sarah Wilson.
And Roger Bryant, signing off.